When you think of a role-playing video game, what comes to mind? Most would say Final Fantasy. Others would say Elder Scrolls. These iconic series have dominated the genre throughout its lifespan, whether it be in the land of the rising sun or abroad. Amongst all of these, there's always been one franchise lurking in the background, trying to be more innovative than the rest. That franchise is the Tales series. Spanning 15 titles and multiple spin-offs over nearly 2 decades, these games have become a mainstay of Japanese popular culture and have only recently gained a foothold in the West, popularized by their colorful characters, morally gray storytelling, and enticing combat system. The Tales series has come to compete with the very best of its category, even sometimes exceeding those it took inspiration from. But the one strange thing is that the franchise's origin has been hidden from the world, lost to time. Who created this masterful series, and how did it get to this point? Was it truly Namco's franchise, or was it more complicated than that? And out of all of this, what was the first tale? Our story begins with a single team, Wolf Team to be specific, formed in 1986 by Masahiro Akishino as an internal development team within Telenet Japan, a recent and budding video game publisher. Wolf Team was built to help expand Telenet's library of titles, as most of them were mediocre at best. Several months after their formation, Wolf Team had kickstarted Telenet's first successful series, Valis. Valis the Phantasm Soldier, releasing in 1986 for the MSX and PC-88 home computers, was yet another side-scrolling platformer, a popular genre at the time. However, its setup was unapologetically Japanese. Playing as Yuko Asao, a schoolgirl in 1980s Japan, players wield her sword, Valis, to protect the 3 realms of Earth, Spirit, and Dreams from the Demon Lord, Rogles. Using classic platforming and sword-swinging gameplay, it was certainly simple for the time, but critics and fans took a liking to the game, turning Valis into a franchise of its own, spawning 3 more sequels of varying value. With these victories on their shoulders, Akishino thought it was high time for Wolf Team to go independent, even though they had only just started. But Telenet, for now, was fine with this, and decided to let the team spread its wings. On its own now, with Telenet Japan's backing, Wolf Team continued to crank out hit after hit. There was Solfease, a classic space shoot-'em up, Zan, their own franchise and a strategy game where you fought 3 different armies, the Noble Yasha, Humanity, or the Demonic Horde. Arcus Odyssey, an isometric co-op hack-and-slash game that followed 4 heroes trying to thwart the return of an evil sorceress, and so much more. For years, they continuously pumped out game after game and trying to one-up themselves in the process. But, as with all businesses, mergers happen regularly. In 1990, Wolf Team was folded back into Telenet in anticipation of their merger with another team, Lasersoft. As time went on, Wolf Team stayed persistent with its own development, trying to make the very best video games that they could. Telenet liked their work, so they decided to fold all of their teams into one singular unit, Wolf Team. To many, this would seem like a boon. More people working on their projects should equal a better product in the long run. Nevertheless, the man who created Wolf Team and the director of many of their past projects, Masaki Uno, departed from the company, with several members in tow. The people who started the company had all but disappeared. However, through this debacle, one man still had a plan, a lowly programmer, who had only just gotten his start at the company, Yoshiharu Gatanda, who had been writing a novel of his own in his free time. This novel was called Tale Phantasia, and was unlike many fantasy stories of its time. It was told through 3 very different viewpoints. The first of these presents the story of Winona Pickford, a woman who meets Daus, a tragic figure and main antagonist of the story, as she follows him to learn his true intentions. The second viewpoint follows Reyes Scarlet, as she experiences the madness of Daus firsthand. In the final phase of the plot, the viewpoint would be picked up by Cress Albane, whose goal is to get revenge on Daus for the death of his parents. Other than this, there were around 6 main protagonists planned with a setting that drew heavily from Norse mythology. It had the potential to become one of the most unique novels of its time, but as soon as Wolf Team and Telenet saw Gatanda's efforts, they just had to beg him to use it for their next project. Luckily enough, he agreed, and soon they began shopping around for a major publisher, as Telenet Japan's sales at the time had been quite meager. The team brought it to anyone who would listen, such as the then squareless Enix. But they wouldn't even dare touch the project in fear of making more competition for themselves. Only when they pitched the property to Namco did they finally find someone who took interest in their efforts. With the support of Namco behind their backs, they could rest comfortably and get to work. But who would lead and make up the team? Gotanda would of course write the scripts and program like he always had. However, a friend in the company who had been helping him with character designs, Yoshiaki Inagaki, would continue his work. On the other side of things, Joe Asanuma would direct their new effort. Masaki Norimoto was brought on as a lead designer, and Motoi Sakuraba, along with his team of composers, would make an unforgettable score. All was set to make Tale Phantasia a game for the ages. But then there was a problem in their way. Namco itself. As soon as production began, Namco took a more hands-on approach and kept insisting on numerous edits to Gotanda's original story. Whole characters had to be scrapped. The original character designs were completely thrown out the window, an entire chunk of crucial story was canned, along with 3 differing viewpoints. And to put the nail in the coffin, the name was changed to Tales of Phantasia. A simple change to be sure, but Namco's iron grip on the production was taking its toll. After being delayed by a year due to all of the edits, people began to quit. Fed up with Namco's lack of understanding, director Joe Asunama and lead designer Masaki Norimoto were let go around the same time, with many others following in their footsteps. Dissatisfied with the changes made to his work, Gotanda also soon left, not wanting to see his creation twisted and contorted any longer as much as it already was. His passion for RPGs hadn't died with this, however, as soon after, he, Asanuma, and Norimoto left to found Tri-Ace, a company that would rival his original creation with their popular Star Ocean and Valkyrie Profile franchises. With the making of this fledgling studio, former developers of Wolf Team began to flock to it, hoping to work at a better place out of the watchful eyes of Namco. Only Motoi Sakuraba stayed on, albeit in a freelancer role. Wolf Team had been ripped to shreds, with only tiny strands of its original being left intact. After putting Eiji Kikuchi in the director's seat to replace Asanuma, they also hired legendary Japanese manga artist Kosuke Fujishima to redesign Inagaki's characters from the ground up to emulate anime and manga stylings. Even without the original characters, the show had to go on, eventually resulting in a release, Tales of Phantasia, releasing in 1995 on the Super Famicom. Still, somewhat resembled what Gotanda had envisioned. Taking place on the planet Tesselia, the game starts off with 4 heroes fighting off the Sorcerer King, Daus. Before they can defeat him, Daus uses magic to travel years into the future, where he meets his end by the warrior's descendants who were waiting for him. 12 years later, 2 young men named Cress and Chester live a peaceful life in their village until one day when a dark knight named Mars razes the village to the ground in the name of Daus, hoping to set him free. Fueled by revenge, the two chase after Mars, meeting a young priestess named Mint along the way. Eventually, Daus breaks free of his prison and escapes back in time with the new daring trio in tow. What follows is a time-hopping adventure from the past to the future, as Cress and his merry band try to fix Daus's misdoings and find out what he truly aims to do with the world. Tales of Phantasia proved to be its own unique undertaking. Its storytelling was dark, but could prove to have plenty of levity to it when the time called. But what truly set it apart from the rest were the characters that had been brought to life by the stellar writing of Gotanda and others, and the unparalleled design of Kosuke Fujishima. All of this was tied together by a running theme about the problems that exist when different races decide to coexist. Each character was also given their own idea of justice and faith, making them seem more real and adding to the conflict. Phantasia was playing out to be an interesting addition to the RPG formula, although it was not only because of story but also its gameplay. Using a never-before-seen system that blew many of its contemporaries out of the water, the Linear Motion Battle System, or LMBS, was unlike anything anyone had seen before. Taking inspiration from fighting games such as Street Fighter, the Linear Motion Battle System smashed the fighting and RPG genres into one unique concoction. Fights are played out on a two-dimensional terrain with enemies and your party members moving in real time. To attack, you can swing your sword at your foes or use arts, special techniques that use up your TP or technical points, the replacement for the common MP or mana points. As the only playable character is Cress, the main protagonist, your allies operate on their own and are the general spellcasters of the group. Alongside this never-before-seen battle system came graphics that pushed the Super Famicom to its uttermost limits, to its expansive world and and use of 3D effects. Tales of Phantasia was also one of the very few titles on the system to even have voice acting, or voice actors. Since they could only fit so much in the cartridge, they could only have ever so much of it. But this limited space was big enough to fit the console's first ever vocal song, "The Dream Will Never Die," making the intro all the more memorable. With an innovative combat system, story, and innumerable other things, Tales of Phantasia seemed set for success. Selling over 400,000 units and receiving much critical praise, Phantasia was a bona fide hit that met the expectations of any new franchise. Namco had even become cocky enough that they removed everyone who had left Wolf Team from the credits. But that knowledge would only be between Namco and the disgruntled Wolf Team employees that had left it all behind. The Tales series was now vastly different from the vision that Gotanda had set out to achieve, for better or worse. The fans who were enthralled with Namco's take on the story were now scrambling to get a taste of the next entry, and soon, the world would do the same. But who would help move the series onward? Most of the members that made up Wolf Team had already hightailed it to Tri-Ace, leaving a gaping hole within the developer. But a few talented individuals were still around. Eiji Kikuchi continued his work as director, guiding the team through the development process. Motoi Sakuraba, while now being a freelancer, still persisted and went along with his role as composer. But series newcomer Utsumi Inomata would go on to replace Kosuke Fujishima, as he went on to design characters for the Sakura Wars series. Without the series creator and visionary, there was much work to be had, but where to start? They could go the route that many other contemporaries follow and make a sequel, continuing from where they had left off. On the other hand, they could go the way that their biggest competitor, Final Fantasy, took, and have each story be their own unique experience. In the end, they went with the latter, but on top of this, they added in their own brand of philosophy with the characteristic genre in a bid to define their stories beyond the usual genre tropes. Given the characteristic genre that translates to Fateful RPG, or in other words, Destiny, the title was very befitting of the situation the team was in, as if Destiny had put them there. Working for 2 long years, their efforts culminated into Tales of Destiny. Releasing in 1997 for the Sony PlayStation, Tales of Destiny bore a resemblance to Phantasia before it, but in all other aspects, it was its own beast. Taking the idea of Fateful RPG to heart, Tales of Destiny tells the tale of country boy turned adventurer Stan Arleron. Seeking fame and fortune, he stows away on the flying ship Draconis, only to be found out and forced to work as a deckhand. But when a hostile force attacks the ship, he's freed, and eventually stumbles into a storeroom where he finds a junk sword that turns out to be Daimlos, a sentient Swordian. Armed with the Daimlos, the two escape the ship, hoping to find great riches, and only end up stumbling into more Swordians and a battle for a relic of the Ether Wars, the Eye of Atomoni. Wolf Team's idea of a Fateful RPG worked well in their new story. The preordained meetings between the characters and their Swordians were crucial to this as they pursue their own titular destinies. And all the while, the series' running theme of discord between races was alive and well, grounding the tale to reality. However, Tales of Destiny didn't only have new changes with the story, but the gameplay as well. You were still forced to control the main protagonist, Stan, all the time, though because of the PlayStation, you could now bring along your friends for 4-player cooperative multiplayer, one of the first RPGs to do so. For this feature and more, the linear motion battle system returned as the new and improved, enhanced linear motion battle system. While the basics of linear movement remained the same, the art range limitations were discarded, and an art chaining system is put in place for all playable characters, allowing you to create combos akin to most fighting games. Spellcasting was also updated, as magic requires a delay that increases with the complexity and potency of the spell being cast, with the most basic ones having no delay at all. A streamlined system for sure, the enhanced linear motion battle system certainly took advantage of the power that the PlayStation contained, with the rest of the game going the same way, alleviating some of the troubles that Tales of Phantasia once had. Exploration now took place on 2 types of maps, towns and dungeons, and the world map. All towns and dungeons are represented by classic 2-dimensional settings and sprites, while the world map is rendered in the 3rd dimension, with unwalkable terrain such as mountains, pits, and oceans. When exploring the world map, you might see a window in the bottom left corner of the screen. This is the active party window. It serves as a way for characters to chat to each other and provide interactions between characters who would otherwise have no reason to speak to one another. The aforementioned short conversations would eventually lead to a feature that would become essential to the Tales formula. As the cherry on top of all of this, Tales of Destiny was actually the first game in the series to receive an opening in classic anime fashion, done by the ever-famous Production IG of all people. With this and the reception of Tales of Phantasia, there was no doubting that Tales of Destiny would be a success. Nearly doubling its sales to 830,000 copies, the Tales series was yet another phenomenon to add to the Japanese video game industry's pantheon of titles, with fans and newcomers buying it in droves. This unprecedented success also drove Namco to release the series internationally not a year later in 1988, although it wasn't without its problems. As it was releasing nearly 2 years into the PlayStation's lifespan, the graphics weren't as spectacular as many of its rivals on the market. The localization team saw this and felt that they needed to provide an outstanding translation with outstanding voice talent to boot. However, this, and in turn the party's conversations, were cut from release internationally in the end. But with this and a negative reception from the worldwide gaming industry, Tales of Destiny sold over 200,000 units, a pale comparison to Tales of Phantasia. Speaking of which, Tales of Phantasia was making a comeback too, and on the PlayStation no less. Releasing just after the international launch of Tales of Destiny, this remake contained all of the enhancements and refinements that the previous title had to offer. Additional arts, player-friendly encounter rates, remastered audio, a new playable character in Suzu Fujibayashi, and a fully animated opening sequence helped this new release go far above its ancestor. But more importantly, Tales of Phantasia for the PlayStation offered skits, short voice-acted chats that helped you further understand the characters and potentially laugh along the way. Other slight improvements came with the ability to cook your own food using recipes learned throughout the game, titles that were a basic form of achievements that you earned as you played, and finally, after all this time, the ability to control any character of your choosing. The people who ended up missing out on the first Tales adventure now had the opportunity to play it, and those returning to replay it could replay it in the definitive way to play, for now. Predictably, with the series' rapid success, the remake of Tales of Phantasia wasn't their last creative effort on the console. That right would be reserved for the next game, Tales of Eternia, coming out during the turn of the century in late 2000, and with the fascinating characteristic genre that dealt with eternity and bonds as its focal point, Tales of Eternia was yet another game that still had the spirit of the franchise at its core, while still being its own original creation. Tales of Eternia is set in the fantasy world of Inferior, a land stuck in the Middle Ages that is always at odds with the parallel world of Celestia, whose civilization is highly advanced. Stuck in the middle is Reed Herschel, a young hunter, and his childhood friends Vera and Keel. After meeting a mysterious girl named Merity who speaks in an unknown language, the group sets out on a quest to find her origins. But as with any other Tales game, they soon become embroiled in the age-old conflict between the two worlds, and must save both from the Grand Fall, a cataclysmic event that would destroy the planet. It was yet another great story within so many others. Gameplay, on the other hand, continued to follow tradition as usual. LMBS, of course, received a new fancy name, the Aggressive Linear Motion Battle System. Taking the name to heart, this system enabled players to fight more aggressively by using spells as a means of continuing combos and supplementing damage, allowing characters to keep enemies staggered and prevent retaliation through crowd control. This is the first system to allow spellcasters to move freely during battle, unencumbered by the spell pause limitation. However, to balance this, only one spell can be cast at a time by enemies or allies, making an entire party of spellcasters not as overpowered as you would think. But the faster-paced nature of the system was also a boon for the often forgotten dodging and evasion mechanics, making them all the more useful. Other than this, there wasn't much innovation in the gameplay department. The world still switched from 2D to 3D on the fly, with skits popping up when needed along with towns for all of your shopping and questing needs. However, in battle, the characters had been reproportioned to fit their representations instead of their older diminutive counterparts. There was even an anime opening produced by Production IG, which eventually led to a full 13-episode anime series releasing shortly after. Just like Tales of Destiny before it, Tales of Eternia was released globally. Its release went smoothly everywhere except the United States. Since American toy maker Mattel owned the trademark for Eternia, Namco couldn't release it under that name. Seeing an opportunity for some genius marketing, they shipped it as Tales of Destiny 2, fooling many who thought it was a sequel when in actuality it had nothing to do with the Tales title before it. Still, the ploy didn't work, as Eternia sold less than Destiny. Tales just couldn't find a foothold outside of its own country, not yet anyway. Even though its release might cause some confusion down the line, this newly rekindled team had made Tales their own, full of distinct scenarios that were nothing like what the series creator had initially intended, but were satisfying nonetheless. An intriguing mix of incredibly creative storytelling and gameplay. At the moment, there seems to be no way to stop this growing franchise from branching out into even more untold territory, and they were just on the verge of creating their greatest work of all time. Hello dear viewer, and thank you for watching another episode of Chronicles. If you enjoyed hearing about the origins of Tales, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for something new. If you enjoyed hearing about the origins of Tales, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for something new every week or so. We apologize for not putting the Fire Emblem series out right now, but I promise we'll be back at it on August 20th, so be sure to tune in for that and the return of Pokemon in the coming weeks. But who am I? Well, I'm Lockstin, the main voice of Chronicles of Gaming. If you want to learn more about gaming with theories and reviews alike, then check out my channel here for more. So how do you feel about the origin of Tales? Do you feel that Namco stole the franchise, or did they eventually earn it? Along with this, do you think the Tales of Phantasia we got is a better product than what Gatanda intended, or would it have been better under his guidance? Chris and I would love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Don't forget to check out our website where you can read scripts for the latest episodes a week early. And anyway, that's it from us. Don't forget to stay awesome and continue that thirst for knowledge.